All right, guys. So, want to take a look at some games of Hritic from a tournament that my students played in last weekend. Anyone could join these tournaments. It's specifically run by King's Indian Chess in Virginia, but anyone can join them. And there's one person in particular that I just wanted to start with, Hritic, because they had a tough time, as you can see. So this, I think, would be a good opportunity to take a look at someone who's struggling and say, okay, why are they struggling in these games? What can we learn from them? So just for now, like a really quick look. I don't have too much time, so it'll just be an intro to understanding this. How do we conquer some of these problems? And then we can work our way up to, we got 15, 1600s at the top. And DTA is the one to beat. He keeps winning them. Amogh's come close. So it'll be interesting to see the rivalry between them. Oh, and it was a streak. Okay, this one had streaks. So he had 2 wins and then he starts his streak and then 1, 2, 3 in a row. So he had 5 in a row. That was nice. And Amog did quite well too, just didn't get the streaks. Only one of them. So let's take a look at Hritic's games. And first one was against Amog. And did he also play? He played the two brothers, Augustia and Aditya. So let's take a look at the first game. Let's just blitz through some of them. And each one I just want us to extract at least a couple of concepts real quick, just to get an idea. And hopefully Hritic will gain from it as well as anyone else. And you guys can totally join. It's for friends and family and all of you guys on YouTube who are chess friends. And I'm using my tablet sort of. So it's touchscreen. We'll see if it works with the mouse on right. So we have e4, e5. He's playing with black against Amog. Knight f3, knight f6. We have the Russian or Petrov defense. Knight c3, knight c6. Now we're transitioning into a 4 knights defense. Just a little note. We see this a lot when players go d4, d5, and then they do the same thing sometimes with the knights in front. Now, don't do that. I would not recommend having knights in front of your c pawns if you're playing a d pawn opening. Okay, just keep that in mind. It's usually not good. So there, we'd want to be able to use our c pawn. So Queen's Gambit, strike at the d pawn with the c pawn, or maybe black will end up playing, e6 and c5 and knight f6 and stuff like that, or maybe c6 to play a Slav and guard the d pawn, things like that. So just keep that in mind. But we have e4, e5. Makes a lot of sense to bring out the knights to f3, c3, f6, c6. You don't have to bring out the c knights. You might move your pawn to c3 later, maybe d3, c3, maybe d4 later. So you're flexible, but 4 knights is fine. Bishop e4. However, now there is a trap that Hritic could have done right away. Knight takes, d5. So we have this fork trick, and you just get it back. You get the piece back, but then black has a nice center. They guard the pawn because white wants to remove the knight and then win this pawn. So you just do that. So anyway, just some opening ideas know about. Okay, so far so good. d3, d6, d3. Okay, well, developing the bishop, but the problem is that the bishop on c4 is sticking his neck out. So Mog's bishop could get in trouble. You have to watch out. You can go after with a knight. You can also try to trap it sometimes. And it just could get awkward in there. And you can see, the computer's recommendation for an improvement. It's saying go after black's bishop with the knight, actually. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend b3. If anything, you can pin the knight with bishop g5, which is annoying because black doesn't want to go h6 and g5 necessarily to break the pin because they've been moving their pawns in front of their own king. Usually not a good idea. If you're going to go h6, g5, you probably want to go queen side. That's fine. Keep that in mind. So b3, b6. Well now we're falling into the trap of copying the opponent. So instead of that, that's interesting. Computer really likes you here if you go knight d4. So for her to say like knight d4, knight takes, bishop takes, pinning the knight, say that's the thing he was planning to do with bishop b2. I'm interested as to why it says it's so good. Probably because the bishop is going to get kicked out of there. It's just an example. Okay, let's say active pieces. And then now we're threatening b5, and that's super awkward for the bishop. So he has to free his bishop. I don't even know. I mean, the computer's just looking at some stuff. Let's see just curious. Let's see what it says. Okay, let's say take, come in here. What is the threat? Like, what if they take here? Oh, that's vicious. And then you can't take, then it's queen g5 and mate. Okay, so some crazy attack. It's like stuff out of Art of Attack and Chess that you can study. Some cool stuff with a focal point on G2. So it's useful sometimes to see those ideas from the computer, not to become over reliant on the computer. We don't want to depend on it for everything, but sometimes you look at it and be like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's an interesting idea I can use next time. Or we can use the opening book for earlier to see what people have done. Masters have done those things that we can borrow from. Oops. Well, there's our mistake right there. That's it. Of course, if they take you have to take back. So that might be the game. Each game we might just see something where it's like, well, that was the thing. For white, for a Moog, probably don't play B3 and bishop C4 because your bishop's sticking his neck out. You want to be able to tuck him back to B3, even A3, A4, and bishop B2. Not the B pawn, the A pawn, okay? But now it may just tuck it back, move your knight to safety, and that, I'm guessing, will probably be the game. Then you gets a skewer rather. On the same line. Skewer, the more valuable piece has to move. A pin, the less valuable piece is in front, and it can't move because you'll take the more valuable piece behind it. Anyway, that's the first game. Actually, I really don't have too much time. I just wanted to at least start this thing, and then I'll continue more later. But let's do one more at least. I don't want to be late running up to my class in Northeast DC. So let's take a quick look. Okay, so now Hritik has white. So first thing is just take the piece back. That's it. Some opening ideas. Let's take a look at what happened here. Now we have D4. Remember, I mentioned actually, you don't really want to go knight C3 in front of your pawn. Now, if they go knight F6, the main move, as you can see, is C4, and then the King's Indian is G6, bishop G7, and D6. We did an arena actually specializing in the king. We all started with King's Indian. You're trying to play E4. If they let you, then go for it. Of course, black can go D5 and now let you go E4 without sacrificing a pawn. You could play the Jababa London. If we can get into that later with D5, you can do that. That's the only real exception for knight C3, or the pawn sack, which is not super great. You could look into those. But again, generally speaking, you don't want to do that. But now since you played E4, it's justified. Now it's fine. Bishop G7. Now F3 is a bit slow. It's too slow. Just go for it. Go E5, get that tempo. Okay. So F3. And I think actually this top chess fan is pretty good. They just had 1,500 because they weren't rated yet, provisional. Okay, the bishop check usually doesn't really do much because they just kick you out with the pawn or challenge you. But it's like, okay, you get challenged, get that movement for free, essentially. Then you just go back. They kick you again. No big deal. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. They get this in for free. It's not like it's the most valuable move for black to get in, C6 and B5. You just go back. Castles, knight G2. Hey, this is actually fine, So far, it's okay. Look, I mean, nice setup. You did move your F pawn. Be careful about moving your F pawn, but it's not like you can never do it. Maybe bishop E3, queen D2 should be castling. Just go king side, because if you go queen side, you're going to get swept up in a storm. You're going to pawn storm you. So we got E5. Now it looks a little more like a King's Indian. It's a modern defense. It's really modern. But if in the King's Indian, white would play D4, C4, and then maybe E4. But here it's a modern or perk defense, very similar to a King's Indian in setup, though. Oops. Okay, that's it right there. Now, black is hitting your dark squares. They're announcing their intention to just like dominate your dark squares. So, yeah, you just should defend it more. But when you move away from it, black could just be like, yoink, thank you very much. And now you might get stormed. Oh, not here yet because bishop takes. Queen supports, and then later you get buried by the pawns. So black just wins the pawns. Watch out for that. Make sure everything's guarded. Okay, black missed it. Now we got to deal with it. Oops. Yeah, see, this is just a case of, just hanging pieces. This is just a case of looking out for the scope of the enemy pieces / pawns. Pawns are different from pieces, right? We've talked about that in our class. So, you got these pawns with their spears shooting at you, aiming at you diagonally, right? So you got all this coverage here, 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 here. A lot of coverage, but look at those. Those are the squares, though, the black pawns. If I had the keyboard working, I'd right click on it. I'd do I forget which key it is, like control or something, and click. But yeah, a lot of coverage by the black pawns. So you don't want to walk into those spears or spikes, landmines all over the place, whatever you want to call them, whatever analogy you want to use. That's not good for you. So knight d5, you walk into that, takes. Okay, and then black is also finally getting that pawn that he's been fighting. He's been fighting for the d4 square, so he won the pawn on d4. Okay, good. Rook takes the open file. Bishop b7 hits that pawn. Black just wants to eat all the pawns. c4. Now there could be an en passant capture. Not a big deal, but oh yes, kind of. Well, if that were to happen, then they're going to keep that pawn. Take, oops, then we can have a fork on those two rooks. I'm not sure you don't even need to give up that bishop for the rook. Like, say, you might want to preserve your bishop. You might go back to protect your king because you've already gotten a piece. So you don't even have to take, like it's saying, just bring your knights in the game, take that guy, maybe take with the knight later. The threat is greater than the execution, said Nimzovich, right? We can go get that guy later. You don't even need to get greedy for it because like you have enough. Take what you need. That philosophy. Take what you need. Don't take more than you need to get greedy and just misplace your pieces. Yeah, F5, 90. Oops. Yeah, I mean, it's just what's going on here. It's just hanging pieces. So Critic next time, just be really careful. You have to look out for the scope of the enemy pieces. So look, you see this here? You know, you have to think to yourself, like I was thinking about this for bullet games recently too. If I'm going to pre-move something, I'm like ready to go, boom, 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 boom. You can pre-move like already making the move beforehand. But I'm not going to pre-move, for example, here, knowing they might even have F5. Well, now it's in front of you. They've played F5. They're covering E4. So you just have to, give it up and be like, all right, I can't go to E4. But how much time did you spend? Oh, you spent like no time. 10 plus 10, you gained 3 seconds. That means you spent 7 seconds only. So look, you notice what happened. You think for your opponent, say, oops, that's covered. Okay, well, there's this move that come around. That's what the computer says. I would suggest maybe move your king out of the way to get off the diagonal, maybe like bishop F4. Not here. We're not hanging anything. Oops, we're going to take it. But like, let's say you go here, for example. Maybe black gets king safe. We don't need to look at all the computer moves. We can do whatever we want. We can come up with reasonable moves. It makes sense. And then we could go like bishop G5, but I would focus on just getting those pieces out. Look, you're playing a human. You lost a piece. That it is what it is. Now you have to fight your hardest, and maybe he'll hang a piece too. You never know. But at the very least, you're mobilizing everything. Black needs to finish that. So white's already going, right? Boom, get those pieces in there. Just you're aiming in his territory. So we're going to figure out what to do. We might bury him with those pawns. We like those pawn storms. Start with your pieces, though. Pieces are more powerful. But as we can see, the pawns could be good shields and cover a lot of stuff. So anyway, that was really quick, but I think just we're already doing a diagnosis like a doctor, and we're seeing some symptoms here. So we're seeing a lot of hanging pieces and moves that are just being made too quickly and fighting for squares such as D4. That's good for black, but white needs to know that. You need to know what your opponent's doing. So just think a little more for your opponent. Your opponent's half the game, obviously. Without your opponent, you don't have a game. So respect your opponent, respect the danger of what they bring. So it's about this awareness. That's just really a quick summary. Probably we'll see similar things in other games. I'm going to take a look at it later. I'm going to bring in also the games with the King's Indian theme, and anyone can join. I'll post the link to the next one. Let me know if you're interested, and we'll get the word out. And I'll see you guys at the next tournament and in the next class. It'll be Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. All right, guys, we'll keep it going, and Ritik, make those adjustments that we just talked about, and hopefully I think you'll see some big improvements just from doing